Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to today's session on funding your research, which is one of the very important topics, especially to the academic staff, especially the junior academic staff of the faculty, about how to get your research supported, especially when it comes to funding, which is one of the challenges we all have. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Professor Sachith Mettananda. So Prof. Sachith Mettananda is the chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya, who kindly accepted our invitation on behalf of the Research Management Committee of the Faculty of Medicine. I would like to invite Professor Mettananda to deliver his talk on funding research.
Thank you, Kavinda and the Research Management Committee. What do you prefer? Seated? Stand? Either is fine. So what I would probably do in the next, maybe I won't take more than half an hour, I suppose. Basically to tell you how the Research Council of University can support research that you do, basically financially, as well as to tell you what are the other options available to fund research, basically in the university, but that will be relevant to anyone who's doing research outside as well. Research funding is something that we are not very familiar with in this country. We do a lot of research, but basically 99% of our research are either self-funded or not utilize any money. But being a higher education institute in a developed sort of a low middle income country, I think if you consider the universities or higher education institute and the research that performed in developed countries, if I go and say that I don't have any research grants, they will probably laugh at me. Because no academic in a higher education institute in a Western country will not have a grant. If you don't have a grant, that means you are not doing research. So grants are something very, very important to higher education institute, especially as we are looking at the rankings. So why do we need funding for research? Firstly, to cover research cost, right? Even a minute cost can be covered with research grants. And nowadays we know the publication of a paper in a reasonable journal has been quite expensive. And to cover publication costs, you need research grants. Thirdly, as academics in the university, it's quite important to have few research grants in your CV. Right? So it's very, very valuable. They are considered as awards, right? Competitive research grants are considered as awards, especially if you are looking for academic positions overseas. So it's quite important. Then to develop your area of research, laboratories, especially if you are in a preclinical or scientific science faculty, how it happens in other countries, in developed countries, is the high-profile researchers will have their own labs. So it goes as their name, maybe Dayasiri lab, if Kavinda has it, and Williams lab, say Professor Sinani Williams lab. Likewise, maybe that is how it is called. You have a huge team working, and they are entirely funded by research grants, right? So that is something that we also can look forward, right? If you have a couple of research grants, you may develop your own lab and the lab, it doesn't have to have a physical premises, but the team that works on the area of research becomes the lab. And it's very, very important to the reputation of the university. We are more and more focused on university ranking. So the university ranking, a large aspect is research income. A huge amount of marks are allocated for research income. So if the university has obtained external research income, that is very, very useful for the university as a whole. So it's useful to everyone. And we should try our best to obtain some research grants, either internally or externally. So I hope the next 30 minutes or so, I will be able to convince you that it's not that difficult. At the same time, it's quite important to have research funding. Where can I get funding for my research? Right? So there are internal research grants in the university itself. So the most easiest and the highest amount of research funding is delivered through the Research Council. So that is probably the reason that why I am giving this talk, and Professor Kavinda and the Research Management Committee wanted me to talk to you, because the Research Council has quite a lot of funding, right? Funding schemes which are not that competitive. And there's another division of the university which is known as Research and Publication Division. I'm sure most of you are very confused of these two, right? But I will try to give some insight into the two different institutes within the university. Yes. And certain faculties will have faculty research funds, but I don't think the medical faculty has. But when it comes to the commerce and management and science faculty, they do have research funds, faculty research funds, which is something that we can also be thinking of. In the Research Management Committee, I think we should try to develop a research fund with some internal, the income that we gather. And there are external sources, national and international, which we will come back after we discuss. Right. So how should I apply? How do I apply? Depending on the grant that you want to apply for. If it is an international, so national grants, maybe National Research Council or the National Science Foundation, or sometimes even professional organizations like Sri Lanka Medical Association, Sri Lanka College of Paediatricians, everyone will have at least a small grant. They are generally advertised. So there will be a deadline. There is an advertisement which you have to apply. And there are year-round applications, sort of grants that can be applied at any time. In Research Council, all grants that we have can be applied at any given point. So we accept applications all year round. It's quite same with the high-profile international research agencies. Whenever you can apply, whenever you want, right? So it can be depending on the situation. You can apply for a deadline, or otherwise you can just Google and find, and they may accept applications at any time. Especially the Research Council, we do accept applications anytime. You will need a research proposal to obtain funding. It is a standard proposal, but whatever the research fund that you are applying for will have specific requirements. So you have to tailor-make to fit into the important aspects that we are looking at. Just one slide on a standard research proposal for funding. It's exactly the same as your ethics application proposal, or maybe if you are looking for a PhD, the PhD proposal, more or less the same. You should have a title, obviously, right? It may not be a single research. You may think about more than one research and apply for funding, but should have one single title, right? Maybe a broad title. So don't worry, it doesn't have to be the same title as of your ethics application or the PhD. It doesn't matter, right? So some people have this. So if I have to have the same title. It's not. So sometimes even the ethics review committee here is probably, I would say it's quite narrow-minded. Actually, you should be quite broad-minded. If someone is working on an area that more than one study can be approved at the same time, ethics review committee should look at that aspect. Every single point does not need ethical approval. Similarly, the research proposal can be a broad one. So you need to have investigators' names, and the CV is important. In the CV, whatever the funding body will look at how how capable you are in providing the performance indicators that the research grant awarding body requires. For example, Research Council will require research publications in the name of University of Kelaniya. Right? If you have not published before, we are reluctant to give. If you have published well, we are very, very happy to award. The same thing applies. And how much grants you have handled before. If someone is capable of handling grants, because we are pretty sure that they will do a decent job. And there should be a summary. In that summary, most of the time you will require a layperson summary, because this will be evaluated by a non-subject expert, right? A panel. So a layperson summary is required. So rest is quite straightforward: background, literature review, aims and objectives, methodology. The timeline is important. So when it comes to grant proposals, the timeline exactly, right? 6 months this, 6 months this. So all grants are time limited. So you have to complete it within that time period. So the timeline is very important and critical. We will be looking at. The most important thing is the budget. So now we know in ethics application or PhD proposal, we just put few things and in the budget and send it through. But if you are applying for a grant, that has to be quite specific and itemized. Once the budget is approved, you can't deviate. So දැන්ට මොකක් හරි දාලා පස්සේ කරනවා කියලා හිතලා grant application දාන්න බෑ. So the grant application, if you have said consumables 500,000, salary 500,000, you can't use 1 million for salary. So it's very, very crucial because we go by financial principles. So budget, you have to be very, very specific and at the same time itemize. So what are for the consumables, equipment. At the same time, I would advise not to be too specific. When you become too specific, when it's approved, you can't deviate even a bit. If you have said that I'll be doing the serum ferritin from this laboratory, so and in the budget, you will have to do it from the same way without having a budget revision. So put emphasis on the budget and itemize, but have room for some changes when you do a budget for the research proposal. And you have to show the key outcomes if the research application requires. Most of the time they will say this should give rise to 1 Scopus Index publication in a Q1 journal, so on and so forth, 2 or 3, right? Or maybe a PhD student should complete the PhD, or maybe a patent, depending on the grant that you are applying for. So that's are the basics of applying for research. Any questions so far? Yes. No, we haven't go into the specific grants yet. So this is for the generally overall research grant proposal, anything. But to answer your question, the Research Council do not have any finding to support PhDs done by academic staff or even supervised by academic staff. We don't do that. We are the all the aim of the Research Council is to provide funding for the academics to do research, not for research degrees. We don't have, but different faculties have different schemes. UGC has a grant scheme for PhDs, likewise, but at the moment we don't have. So in the next few slides, I would be focusing basically on the research grant schemes that we have in the Research Council. In the Research Council, we have grant schemes to commence a research, do a research, present your findings, and publish. If you are looking for patents, to develop a patentable product, as well as to commercialization. The entire spectrum is there. But we don't support any probationary lecturers, PhDs, or the tuition fees, PhD fees. These are not covered. Even if you are supervising a PhD student, the Research Council, in principle, will not provide the tuition fees or the FGS fees, because most of the money that we get comes from those sources. So it's financially wrong to support a PhD in the same university using the Research Council fund. We don't do that. So the grants that we have are exclusively for permanent academic staff members, right? So we don't provide grants for research assistant, research students. So the applicant should be an academic staff member. Applicant should always be an academic staff member. So we cover every aspect from implementation to publication. No deadlines. There are no deadlines for any of the grants. All grants advertised in the website are always available, right? To be honest, we have adequate funding, right? Adequate funding, and we can give, provided you provide the decent the proposal. Less competitive, right? As long if the proposal is decent and the budget is according to the financial regulations of the Research Council, we always give, right? So I have been sort of this is my third year. So when I started in 2023, the Research Council expenditure was less than 10 million per year. But last year, we spent 30 million. 30 million. The money is there actually, right? At the same time, we have shown the effect. The Scopus publication numbers have gone up drastically over the last 2 years. Last year, in the University of Kelaniya, we had more than 450 Scopus publications, which was struggling to reach 200 few years back, right? And there are different aspects, ways that we get money. So, so far it's not a problem. I don't know whether it will be a problem after this talk, right? Anyway. And several grants and award schemes are available, 300,000 to 2 million. All information, up-to-date, accurate information, and all guidelines are in this website, Research Council website, and we abide by the guideline. We very rarely deviate from the guideline. So if you're eligible for the one, very likely you will get. So to do research, we have these grants for strengthening research outputs. That's quite a popular grant scheme, right? So you can get up to 1 million. So the grant period can be up to 3 years. It's the guideline generally says ongoing research work, but we accept new proposals provided that there are some background work done by the same researcher, which will be the case most of the time. So you'd have done at least some without money, but with that you can apply for this strengthening research output grant scheme. It can cover research assistant allowances, so generally 50 to 60,000 a month can be given. Equipment, consumables, travel, subsistence, but the subsistence cannot be more than 25%. Miscellaneous expenses cannot be more than 10%, but everything can be covered. Publication charges, we don't provide through this. We have a different scheme. Presentation, PhD student fees, we don't cover. We don't have such a scheme. But any academic who wants to do a research can do fully through this grant scheme. So approval will be quite fast. We try to approve within 3 months. So once you send it, there will be a panel appointed. Within a month, we will make a decision. Then there will be 2 steps going to the finance committee and the council. Within about 3-4 months, if the proposal is of suitable quality, which we will, we will do the external review, everything within 3 months and complete. Key performance indicator is at the moment is Scopus Index publication, right? Maybe 1 or 2 we prefer, and the research council needs to be acknowledged. So those few. So anyone can apply. Anyone can apply at any time, but a decent proposal. Then we have the second grant scheme, the multidisciplinary research grant, which was not utilized for the last 5 years. So we have popularized this as well. So far for this year, we have got 6 applications. And we increased the ceiling to 2 million. So you can go up to 2 million. Go up to 3 years, new research proposals. But the requirement is you need to have investigated from 2 different faculties of the university, right? Not difficult, can be medicine science, right? Medicine commerce, right? So it's quite often we get application from science and computer science, right? Science and economics, likewise, right? If you are interested, yes, you can apply. And again, can be approved within 3 to 4 months. Again, we need Scopus Index publication, right? So we are very generous in giving grants, provided the application. At the same time, we will be very strict on the follow-up. So you will have to submit the 6 monthly progress reports. If not, we will write back, right? We will write back twice. We will report to the Research Management Committee. By the time you end the grant, we need the final approval. You can apply for extension, but the publication. If not, there's a risk that you will be blacklisted. So, because these are all public money, so I'm so generous, but at the same time, the researchers will have the responsibility. And unfortunately, we had to blacklist one from medical faculty a few years ago, right? But that's just one incident. But rest have been getting us one publication. Even if you get a one publication, that is good enough, right? But the reporting has to be perfect. So these are multidisciplinary research grant scheme, academics from 2 faculties. That is the requirement. But they are generally, we have for the last year or so, all applications, maybe after some revision, we have approved. And this is a new scheme which was very, very popular and has really helped us to improve the research output and the number of publications from the university. So these are research grants for publishing papers. These are basically to publish papers. I'm sure many of you had received and majority have completed successfully. And the maximum is 300,000. Maximum period is 6 months. You can extend up to 9 months. That's the maximum. This is basically to publish paper. You can write a review article, right? You can ask for review article. So there won't be any big proposals. Very tiny proposal. We always give this. This is just a desk review. We don't even send it to external review, right? So internally we review that, and we always give this grant, right? So you can ask to write a review paper. You may say, I have some data. You are here to do a secondary analysis, right? And I have completed work, and we have some data collected to write the last bit to write the paper I need. So generally, this is to cover the research assistant cost, salary for 6 months, 50,000 per month for 6 months, for you to get someone to do the final analysis or the literature search and to write the paper and to publish. We don't expect you to publish within 6 months, but at least after 6 months, there should be a draft which has been submitted to a journal. As long as you have the draft submitted to a journal, we can accept the final report as the grant is being completed, but you need to send us the publication with the Research Council being acknowledged as the funding source for us to label it as successfully completed. Once you have successfully completed your grant, you can apply for the second grant. Again, so if you are prolific, I know a couple of researchers in our faculty, so they are quite prolific. So you apply, we approve in the same 1 month or 2 months, you get the grant, write the paper, publish, send the report, reapply, right? So it can be a continuous, right? So we are very happy. We get publications every 6 months, the university. So that is what is required, right? So we have plenty of funds left in this, right? Funds left in this. We can support as many as 30, 40 grants per year through this. We are doing that. And I always encourage. And you can apply for this grant as well as one of the grants I have told you before. Strengthening output grant as well as writing research paper grant. So it's not a problem for one academic to have both grants, right? But remember, we will always want you to send the 3-month progress report, final report, and until you publish, we will remind, right? But there won't be any blacklisting here, right? But you will never be able to apply for the grant again. That's it. There are a few other less popular grant schemes. So those are the 3 main I would recommend for you to apply if you are really interested. Strengthening research output, all details in the website. Multidisciplinary research grant if you have collaborators from other faculties. Publishing papers, always you can apply. You can always employ a research assistant, a demonstrator, or whatever, the pre-intern, whoever is fine with us. And there's one called Innovative Pilot Research Project. If you are looking for a patentable product, so this has to be the key performance indicator, the outcome measure is a patent, not a publication. So it's generally for the science faculty. This has not been very popular. It's probably, at the moment, we don't have any ongoing such grants. And we recently introduced this gap filling grant. Once you have a patent, to commercialize. Once you have a patent, to do the last bits to commercialize, again, mainly aiming for the science faculty, but unfortunately, there are no ongoing grants. If you have, always apply. We would love to have the first grant on this scheme. So that's to do the research. So those are the 5 schemes that the Research Council will offer you to do research. We also support presenting papers at conference, and to be honest, I generally don't encourage this. Generally, we feel this is a waste of money, right? People going to present, and it's not cost effective to the university or the Research Council. Because the presenting abstract is not really worthwhile in terms of university ranking. So we are nowadays, we generally discourage this. But the grant schemes are still there if you want to apply. There's a foreign travel grant scheme, which you can go up to 300,000. Registration fees, airfare, everything is covered. But because of the recent government regulations, when you apply for foreign leave, you again give another statement saying that you are not utilizing institute income. So there is a bit of a problem in getting this. We approve, but you will not get the money because you have already submitted another thing. So, and we can reimburse registration fees to present papers. Here the conferences are Scopus, has to be Scopus Index conferences. This is quite useful for science faculty and computing and technology faculty, where they publish the full paper in conferences. And they are indexed in Scopus, which the university will get credit in university ranking. But when it comes to medical conferences, our conferences are rarely indexed in Scopus. So the medical faculty, this is not a suitable option. To help the medical faculty as well as humanities, we have also have another grant scheme to registration fees. This is to cover registration fees in prestigious local and international conferences. So the prestigious means it has to be organized by a professional organization or an academic institute and should be held more than 10 times. 138th Sri Lanka Medical Association annual conference, yes. If you have a Asia Pacific Congress in Paediatrics, if it is 8th, not eligible. If it is 12th, that's eligible. But it's something that I don't encourage. We are very strict on this because we don't encourage. If it is not Scopus Index, if it is not organized by professional organization, we will reject. So it's very often we reject these applications because there are so many predatory conferences. So you have conferences where even for us in the research council, very difficult to identify whether it's a true conference or predatory conference. And the benefit that the university get is very minute. If you publish an abstract, there's no credit for the university. You can just, so it's not very cost effective for us. This scheme, I'm sure many of you are aware, right? We are popularizing this a lot. So we will provide publication charges any number of time as long as the guideline is met. So here we will be providing publication charges to publish your full paper in a reputed journal. So those are the requirements, right? It has to be your paper. We don't provide publication charges for someone else's paper. So your paper means you have to be either the first author, corresponding author, either of those two. But recently, we have introduced even for the last or senior author, we will be giving. If you are the middle author, that means you are helping someone else. So there have been applications asking, because the University of Kelaniya is the only place that provides this much of money for publication charges. The first author from Javadanapura, last author and the corresponding author from KDU, middle author from Kelaniya, asking publication charges from us. We will not, right? We will not. So if you are the first author or the corresponding author or the last senior author, you are eligible. You have to state University of Kelaniya as the affiliation. You should mention the kln.ac.lk email address as the corresponding email address. Very, very particular, right? And it has to be a reputed journal. The benchmark for now is Scopus Index. So it has to be a Scopus Index journal. All science citation index journals are Scopus Index. And many PubMed journals, not all, many PubMed index journals are Scopus Index. So I'll show you how to check the Scopus indexing in a minute. And always try to go for a higher tier journal, right? The tier is defined by Q status. I will also show how to find, right? So the journals are ranked in the specific discipline based in the Scopus from 1 to 99%. 99% journal is the best. So it's top 10%. From 90 to 199%, top 10%. Anything above 75th is known as Q1 journals. Quartile 1, Q1 journals. So if it is top 10% journal, we'll be giving up to 600,000. Plenty. Enough to cover. Q1 not top 10%, 500,000. Q2, 400,000. Anything if it is a Scopus index, 300,000 maximum can be given. But if the journal has an option to publish free, we don't give, right? So some journals, for example, Lancet or Nature, they are subscription journals. They will not charge for publication. But you can pay some money and get it open access. That we don't want. That is not useful. These are basically for open access journals, right? Open access reputed journals, PLOS One, BMJ journal, BMJ Open, the BMC group, right? But we will be looking at whether you have asked for waivers, right? Most of the time in low and middle income countries, the publication or APC can be waived off, right? We will make sure that you ask for that. If not, the maximum every time you can get a 50% discount, right? So we will only provide the discounted price. So when you publish, when your paper get accepted, ask for a waiver. If not, at least a discount. If once the discount is granted, see whether it is within this range. Without any problem, you pay, provided you are the first class corresponding and your email is there, everything is there, and ask the invoice in the name of University of Kelaniya, with your name, with University of Kelaniya, right? We can always reimburse, right? We can always reimburse. As well as sometimes in other faculties, people ask us to pay, which can also be done, but takes time. Always, it's easier to reimburse, right? If you submit with the credit card, this has always worked, provided you fulfill the criteria. And if you have 5 papers in this year, 5 papers this year, we can provide for all 5 papers, right? All 5 papers without a limit. So it's a very good thing, but make sure you don't get caught with these predatory journals, right? Or hijack journals. So the basic definition of a predatory journal for Research Council is a journal that is not indexed in Scopus and asking for article processing charges. So we know a lot of local journals are not indexed, right? For example, CEMJ, right? Or Sri Lanka Journal of Child Health, it's an index, but they will not ask for money. So that's not predatory. And many index journals, Nature Communication, Scientific, everything will ask for APC. But if it is indexed and publication charges are, that's acceptable. If they are not indexed and asking for publication charges, even a minute, that's a predatory journal. We will not provide, and you will not get any credit by publishing in those as well. So how to find the Scopus journal? I don't know whether this should work. So this is the Scopus website. If you have not seen, scopus.com, right? Once you go there, so you can search. You don't need any access for this subject area. So this is how you find a list of journals to publish. So if your research is on general medicine, you said medicine, general medicine, apply. The list of journals comes, right? From the order. You can see it says Lancet 99%. I don't know whether you can see. So this is the centile. So BMJ 97th percentile. That's the highest, very high quality journal. So if it is more than 90, that's top 10%, right? So the best is Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, 99%. So anything more than 76, Q1 journal. Then if you want to find whether a particular journal is indexed, you can do that. Title, and you say Lancet, and it will appear Lancet Global Health. So you have to look for the journal. Yes, it's indexed and it's the 98th percentile. So it's a Scopus index journal, top 10% Q1 journal. And you can get the details here, right? Find out about that journal. So always before you submit your next paper, just make sure that it is indexed in Scopus. At the same time, see whether it's a high quality journal, right? So impact factor is now going out of fashion. Impact factor is good. But impact factor is dependent on the field that you publish. So here the ranking is based for your field, right? Your field. So always look for impact factor as well, but just go to the Scopus, and if you have 2 journals to select from, always go for the higher tier journal, right? Maybe 90th percentile journal will be better than the 50th percentile journal, right? You first try the 90th percentile, failing of which you can go to the lower quality journal. Right. So that's the research council. That is what we do. At the same time, you may see once in a while the Dean Medical Faculty sends an email. Internal research grants applications are called for, right? So that is independent of research council, right? We don't ask people to. We don't send emails. We have a website, we promote, you apply. But here the research and publication division has a allocation for each faculty. The annual allocation is generally 2 million for all faculties. That every year they call applications, generally in the November-December period, that is through the dean of the faculty. So dean will send an application. The maximum is 500,000. If it is less than 300,000, only the internal review is required. It is entirely done through the faculty and the research and publication committee. Nothing to do with research council. In these grants, you can't apply for research assistant fees. You can only go for consumables, other things, maybe equipment, small equipment, but research assistants cannot be employed through this grant scheme. And this has a bit of a longer review process, and now they have been more and more streamlined because of the research council involvement as well. But if you remember 3 years ago, if you apply for 2022 grant, the grant becomes approved only in 2024 by the time we have finished the research, right? But these have now changed, but this is completely different, right? So these are research and publication division. Keep looking for funding calls in November, December through Dean. And if you have here you can only apply for one grant. If you have an ongoing grant, you can apply for another one. But you can have any number of research council grants along with this. Right. So that's the research and publication division. That's all they have. That is, everything else is research council. So there's our internal grants. But if you really want to have a good value in your CV, you should be applying for external grants. That is what is required for the university as well. University research income, we have to show the external research funding we have received, not the internal research funding. So you have local, the easiest, or probably, these are very competitive, not easy to get because the funding is limited and large number of applicants. But the reasonable place is National Research Council. They will have annual calls. I think the 31st March they close the application for this year's. And the one popular one is investigator-driven grant, where you can apply with a research. This time the amount up to 4 million, I think. And they have target-oriented multidisciplinary research grants. I think one MMU got one. I don't know whether, I think it's completed. It's other than that, I don't know anyone in the faculty who has got that grant, which can go up to 20 million. So the National Research Council of Sri Lanka, go to the website and see. If you have got a grant, that's very, very valuable. It's an external grant, right? Good for your CV, as well as you can even apply for Vice Chancellor's Awards for the external research grants highest amount. So that benefits are there. NSF is the other place. National Science Foundation has been very, 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 very less friendly for medical research. I don't know. I have never seen someone who has sort of NSF grants. Always they go for science, technology, that side. With the new Director General, we might see a different trend. But, Shirom is the Director General of NSF. Maybe they change, but that's another place. They have a grant scheme called Competitive Research Grant. Competitive Research Grant. That's one place. I have never been successful with them. I have been with NRC, but not NSF. Other local grants are very small ones. Sri Lanka Medical Association, maybe 100,000 each, small grants. Maybe every college of Paediatrician, they have a Stella de Silva grant, very small amounts, but can apply. Again, even if it is a small amount, those are external grants and will be valuable for your CV. Valuable for your CV as a whole. International grants are very competitive, but everyone is eligible. Anyone can apply, right? But very competitive. You generally need some overseas collaborators. In the UK, you have the Wellcome Trust. You can apply most of their grants at any time. And the National Institute, NIHR grants, MRC Medical Research Council, those are the UK grants. Those are the places where the academics in UK get grants. So they have multiple grants. And NIH from USA, and these are the overseas funding agencies. Once you get one or two local grants, you can try. But there will be quite significant paperwork. If there's any issue, the Research Council is there to help in these application processes. So the Wellcome Trust, we were not an institute actually. So last year we registered ourselves. Anyone can now apply. I know there were a couple of applications, but I don't think any of those were successful. But even applying itself is a good learning exercise. So that's basically about the grants and support that you can get for your research from the Research Council, Research and Publication Division, locally and internationally. Once you get the grant, utilizing is also needs some input, right? So once you get the grant, you can't sort of think, now I have got the grant and close everything. No. Now only probably the hassle begins, I would say. The utilizing the grant is also sometimes challenging because there are so much of financial and administrative regulations. For the Research Council grants, it's not so, but still it will be. If it is a reimbursement of publication charges or something, very straightforward. It can be. But if it is a research grant, that has to be given through the burst office. You will not get money for you to spend. So every procurement should undergo the same process of bidding, so on and so forth. And the easiest way is to get an advance, right? So cash advance up to about 50,000 you can get, and then you can spend it and get the bills. But I know it can be sometimes challenging, but once you are used to it, one or two grants, you know how best to handle it. So I'm probably not going to tell exactly how to do, because the how to do depends on the situation, right? But doable. If you come across any problem, we can give some advice, but sometimes they may not work. But most of the time, I'm sure it will work. But the important thing is to stick to the budget. If they will look whether you are sticking to the budget and to the administration and financial regulations of the university. If you are lucky enough to get an international grant, there are certain further approvals that you need at the national level, which I don't think is important at this moment. That's all I have to tell.
Thank you very much. So let me thank our invited speaker, Professor Sachith Mettananda, the chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya, taking time to enlighten us, everybody here, and explaining us about the opportunities that we can use to facilitate the research that we do. So I hope that was very useful for everybody here. So thank you very much. And also thank you to everyone who has come here to actively participate. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kavinda.